This is Dr. Richard Semelka again. I'm talking about the misconduct, the worst misconduct of modern U.S. history that took place at UNC Chapel Hill that I reported on and was subsequently fired. So Al Parker has died this year, so this is why I'm talking now. Up until now, myself and my partner, who I'll call her Kay, were afraid that if we spoke up, we would be killed. I mean, that's not an unreasonable consideration. And I had in mind that the epitaph on my grave would be, "Son of a gun." You know, it turns out he was right. So in this presentation, I'm talking about the 3 cynical bets that UNC Chapel Hill made. The first cynical bet is I reported that Al Parker was at risk at killing all of our residents. So the first bet is that Al Parker wouldn't kill all the residents. Now, about the time in Chapel Hill, shortly after I made the initial presentation, was that horrible event where a white male who was married, so not unicel, white male who was married, who killed the 3 young Muslim students. I mean, horrific. That was in the spring of 2015. And indeed, I actually thought it was Al Parker who'd killed Kay. I thought she was killed because I couldn't get a hold of her. I thought she was the victim. Turns out it was this horrible other case. So Al Parker has died, and still, you know, and other things that happened this year that made me not want to have UNC have the final say, because up to the present time, the word on my case is that I was dishonest, and that's why I was fired. It turns out I was the most brave, and actually my attorney in the not the Supreme Court, the Superior Court of Orange County said that I was a hero, and I would say it's true. I was the only person, maybe of 150 people, who knew about Paul Jakes being drunk, and 150 people who knew that Al Parker posed a great danger. So that was the first cynical bet, that Al Parker wouldn't go on a killing spree. And in fact, so, you know, you have to see the dark humor in these things. Apparently, a policeman at a police officer of UNC Chapel Hill decided that Al Parker was not a risk. So I can just imagine, you know, the interview that you know, this incredible detective made with Al Parker to determine if he was at risk of killing all of our residents. That the you know, policeman would say to him, "Al, y'all aren't gonna kill a whole bunch of residents, are you?" And Al responding, "No." So, you know, the policeman then saying to UNC tensions on how always no risk whatsoever. And of course, the folly of that, and I don't need to relate all the stories of Charlie Hebdo killer in Paris and the killer at the Orlando airport, even the 10-year-old or 12-year-old kid with a gun in, I think, in Michigan, killing kids in the student. An interview doesn't tell you if somebody is a potential murderer or not. In fact, someone with my level of expertise, having studied this guy for 23 years, and also other faculty, like the head of neuroradiology at the time, Mauricio Castillo, and also the executive chairman of radiology, he in particular was in terror, and his wife in terror of this guy. So that was the first bet, that he wasn't going to go on a killing spree. And I have to wonder if they didn't manage ensure that he didn't kill these radiology residents by having a financial settlement like the U.S. military had with, was it the ISIS or the Taliban in Afghanistan or Syria, that they paid them off that they don't kill U.S. soldiers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't pay off Al Parker, that he not kill the residents. I mean, it's so dishonest what these characters did. So the next bet is that, and it was correct up until the present time, The next bet was that neither I nor Kay would complain publicly about what happened because we would be afraid that Al Parker would kill us, which is a reasonable thing to be concerned about. So yes, as long as Al Parker was alive, we're not going to talk, I was not going to speak publicly about the risk that he posed and the reason that I was fired. It's because I spoke up about these two characters. And um, the third cynical bet that they made so far has held up, and that is that no major news organization would be interested in this story. And again, in a dark humor way, I have to think that, well, the reason is that news organizations basically respond to what their viewing audience wants to hear. So half of the viewing audience already have an older white male with grievances that sort of satisfies their needs so they don't need another one. And the other half of the media world are tired of a older white male complaining about stuff. So this story isn't interesting, even though this far dwarfs all the other stories. And one other funny thing that I'll relate in this presentation is that Carol Folt was the chancellor of UNC when I wrote to her about these complaints. Now, it also happened to be that the time that I made the complaint was shortly after the Weinstein report came out about the UNC sports misconduct. And just in brief, maybe 20 students who were football players, I think, interestingly enough, got grades that they didn't attend the classes. So this was a international crisis. 20 students, they got marks they shouldn't have gotten so they could stay on the team based on being still at UNC. That is an international crisis of misconduct. Somebody killing a bunch of patients and another physician threatening to kill all of our residents, that's not a major crisis. So the Weinstein report said that people were afraid to speak up who were aware that misconduct was going as far as students getting bad grades because they were afraid of retaliation. So when I received that, I thought, hey, if, and her spoken response about that is she said that retaliation would never be done at UNC moving forward. There will be no tolerance to retaliation. So I actually see the dark humor of it, that as soon as she had the opportunity, she actually retaliated against me and this is it. This is not, 20 kids getting grades they didn't deserve, which again, the reality is, who cares, right? Who cares? What does it matter? Who was harmed? I reported a drunk doctor was allowed to operate for 20 years, probably, in my estimate, because I know the numbers, this is what I do, is my research, understanding the numbers of different things, probably in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 10,000 would have been operated on by a drunk doctor, when the chair of radiology, almost certainly the head of legal, almost certainly the dean was aware something like this. Well, the chair knew exactly what was going on, and I think legal had to know, and the dean probably by extension had to know. For 20 years that was going on. And then the other character, now this is the one other little gem that I'll add in about Al Parker. Now the current leadership at the School of Medicine are two women, as one dean and one is, I think, the head of the CEO of the healthcare system. I think she's the interim CEO. They're both women. What would they think? The other thing that Al Parker did is he would coerce young female doctors to take his concealed weapons course in the basement of his house. The whole picture doesn't get crazier than this. And I've been able to see the dark humor in all of it, but enough is enough. I'm not going to tolerate that the message is that I was dishonest. No, I was a hero and I reported the worst misconduct in modern U.S. history. Thank you.